From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America, your global pit stop for the latest news and headlines from the United States and around the world. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. We'll get you a roundup of all the day's top stories, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. In Lebanon, Iran-backed Hezbollah says it launched over 100 rockets at Israeli military positions. This in retaliation for a strike on the eastern part of the country. Beijing says it has indisputable sovereignty over islands in the South China Sea. This after the Philippines refused to consider China's concept paper on the dispute. Russia, China, and Iran began joint Navy drills in the Gulf of Oman. The three allies say the exercises are focused on protection of maritime economic activity. Germany's train drivers union announces a sixth round of strikes in a long-running dispute over working hours and pay. Frustrated commuters accuse the union of blackmail. The four-member SpaceX Crew 7 complete their nearly 6-month mission aboard the International Space Station with a splashdown off the coast of Florida. We begin with stunning news coming from the Caribbean. Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry has submitted his resignation. The embattled Prime Minister will step down to make way for a transition council and a temporary replacement.
After the Council of Ministers tonight accepted to put into place a transitional presidential council, the members of the council will be picked after agreement with different sectors of the national life. The government I am running will remove itself immediately after the establishment of the said council.
Now the announcement comes after the envoys from Caribbean nations held an emergency meeting in Jamaica over the crisis in Haiti. The Caribbean Community, or CARICOM, has outlined the steps for Haiti once Prime Minister Henry steps down.
The Transitional Presidential Council will swiftly select and appoint an interim Prime Minister. The Transitional Presidential Council will, together with the interim Prime Minister, appoint an inclusive Council of Ministers. The Transitional Presidential Council will hold the relevant and possible powers of the Haitian presidency during the transition period until an elected government is established.
The U.S. has also come out in support of Prime Minister Henry's resignation. In fact, during the meeting with leaders from the Caribbean, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pledged an additional $200 million in aid for Haiti. Washington has also offered Prime Minister Henry the choice to continue staying in Puerto Rico, citing the risk of returning to his homeland.
Given this increasingly urgent need, I'm announcing today that the United States Department of Defense is doubling its approved support for the mission from $100 million to $200 million. And that brings the total U.S. support to $300 million for this effort. I'm also announcing additional humanitarian assistance for the people of Haiti, $33 million to further support their health and food security.
As gangs in Haiti continue with their attacks on government institutions, Kenya has agreed to expedite the process to deploy its security officials in Port-au-Prince. Now, this stems from a recent agreement between Kenyan President William Ruto and Haiti's outgoing Prime Minister Ariel Henry.
Status is as you know it. There was a small court matter. That small matter has been resolved because the court said we needed to have a reciprocal agreement with Haiti. That reciprocal agreement has already been signed about a week ago. So we are now in the pre-deployment stage. The standard operation procedures are in place, and Kenyan police officers will be just part of the multinational security mission in Haiti. Kenya is the lead nation, but there are so many other countries that have pledged to contribute troops. And this came from the mandate of the United Nations Security Council. So it's part of our international obligations.
Meanwhile, former cop turned gang leader Jimmy Chirizier has warned against the deployment of international forces in Haiti. The gang leader says that any presence of international troops will lead to a bloody revolution. Chirizier added that the foreign nations had already meddled in Haiti's internal matters for far too long, and it was now up to the people of Haiti to decide their next leader.
We demand that the choice of the person who is going to lead this country we live in will be made by the Haitian people. We want to make sure the person who is going to lead this country's wife and children live in Haiti. Today, we are taking this opportunity to ask the international community to give Haiti a chance. Because in the situation it's in right now, it's up to us Haitians to decide who can govern the country and what kind of government we want, and how we are going to work to get the country out of the misery it's in.
With Prime Minister Henry stepping down, there is still a long way to go before peace can be secured. Gang leaders are eyeing the corridors of the National Palace as a power vacuum forms. Meanwhile, the deployment of an internationally led security mission is likely to begin soon. This comes as hundreds of thousands of Haitians remain displaced. Haiti's future remains unclear, and the next leader is also in doubt. We'll stay abreast of developments as Chirizier plots his next move. And from the Caribbean to the Middle East, Israel has targeted Hamas #3 in an airstrike. The Israeli military bombed the Al-Nusseirat refugee camp in central Gaza following intelligence about the location of a senior Hamas leader. Israel now has not confirmed the success of the strike. Its target was military leader Marwan Issa. Reports say he may have died while hiding in a building in a refugee camp. So far, Hamas has neither confirmed nor refuted the reports. If his death in fact is confirmed, he will be the highest ranking official from Hamas killed by Israel during this war.
This evening, I would like to refer to reports over the past 24 hours regarding the elimination of seniors in the Gaza Strip. We are still examining the results of the attack and are yet to receive a final confirmation about it. It is still important to update that on the night between Saturday, March 9th and Sunday, March 10th, in a joint operation by the IDF and Shin Bet, warplanes attacked an underground compound of Hamas seniors. In central Gaza Strip, in the area of Al-Nusseirat, the compound was used by two of the organization's seniors. Marwan Issa, who is Mohammad Deif's deputy and one of the planners of the October 7 massacre. Marwan Issa is part of the central terror triangle in the Gaza Strip that includes also Mohammad Deif and Yahya Sinwar.
שמורכב גם ממוחמד דף ויחיא סינואר.
In a video, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu alluded to the IDF operation. Netanyahu said Israel had killed Hamas' fourth-ranked leader in an alleged drone strike in January in Lebanon. Now Israel is targeting the remaining three of Hamas leadership.
אנחנו בדרך לניצחון המוחלט. בדרך לניצחון הזה חיסלנו כבר את מספר 4 בחמאס, ו3, 2 ו1 בדרך. כולם בני מוות, אנחנו נגיע לכולם.
59-year-old Issa, Yahya Sinwar, who serves as Hamas head in Gaza, and Mohammad Deif, the group's supreme commander, are all in Israel's crosshairs. Israel says these three form the terror triangle in Gaza. Now, Issa has long been a high-value target of Israel's for significant roles carrying out a string of terror attacks, starting from the time of the first Intifada and all the way up to October 7th. Now, he survived multiple assassination attempts. In fact, in March of last year, Issa delivered a speech calling for Palestinians in the West Bank and East Jerusalem to lead the confrontation against Israeli occupation. In the same address, he warned that a quake would hit the region soon. Now, Issa has participated in a series of secret meetings in Egypt on prisoner release. He also played a central role in the Gilad Shalit deal, where over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners were released in exchange for one Israeli soldier. And staying in the Middle East, tensions continue to rise in the Red Sea. The Yemen-based Houthi rebels fired multiple missiles at commercial ships passing through the Bab el-Mandab Strait. The Houthis claimed that they successfully struck an American-flagged ship named Pinocchio.
The Yemeni armed forces have confirmed that they will continue to prevent Israeli navigation or these ships heading to the ports of occupied Palestine in the Red and Arabian Seas until the aggression stops and the siege on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip is lifted.
The U.S. Central Command did in fact confirm that the Houthis launched missiles at a commercial ship which was Liberian and not American. U.S. forces also confirmed that the missiles did not impact any commercial vessel in the Red Sea. However, after the Houthi attacks, retaliatory strikes were launched across Yemen. Fighter jets from the United States and the United Kingdom dropped bombs on 6 targets, destroying Houthi naval vessels and missile sites. Yemen's internationally recognized government has confirmed the airstrikes claimed the lives of at least 11 people while wounding an additional 14. Despite the airstrikes, the Iran-backed Houthis say they will increase their offensive during the holy month of Ramadan.
The Yemeni armed forces confirmed that their military operations will be escalated with the help of Allah the Almighty during the month of Ramadan, the month of jihad, in support of the oppressed Palestinian people and for our Mujahideen brothers in the Gaza Strip.
Meanwhile, the Houthis have recruited thousands of civilians into their ranks. The recruits were made to participate in a 12-week military training program as part of their orientation. They also pledged to wage a war against the United States, the UK, and Israel. The newly enlisted men were then paraded in Yemen's capital, Sana'a, in a massive show of Houthi strength.
We came here to witness the readiness and alertness against tyranny, against the arrogance of US, UK and Israelis, and in support for our brothers in Gaza and Palestine. We came here to witness the graduates of the training course Al-Aqsa Floods. This is the official rush and general mobilization against God's enemies, to send a message to them that whatever they do, we will be there for them and ready in support for our brothers in Gaza and Palestine.
These latest attacks from the Houthis come just days after they launched a fatal attack on another commercial ship that killed 4 civilians. Now, Western efforts to stop the Houthis haven't been successful. Meanwhile, private ships continue to brave the risky waters of the Red Sea. Russia is getting ready for a presidential election, and Vladimir Putin is certain to win. The 2024 election will hand Putin another 6-year term, making him the longest-serving Kremlin chief since Joseph Stalin. But just 3 days ahead of the vote, Moscow has made claims of meddling. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service has accused Washington of interference, claiming that President Joe Biden is plotting a cyber attack on Russian online voting systems. Our next report explains.
With just 3 days to go for presidential elections in Russia, Moscow has accused the United States of meddling. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service says Washington has plans to target its online voting systems by launching a major cyber attack. Russia's SVR Foreign Intelligence Service also says US President Joe Biden has tasked American NGOs to achieve a decrease in voter turnout in Russian elections. Despite these claims of meddling and interference, even this year, the Russian presidential elections are fairly predictable, with no twists and turns and no competition. President Vladimir Putin is certain to win. This will be Putin's 6th term as president, and it will make him the longest-serving Kremlin chief since Joseph Stalin. he faces virtually no opposition. Though there are three other candidates in the fray. Nikolai Kharitonov, a 75-year-old member of Russia's lower house of parliament. Leonid Slutsky, leader of the Nationalist Liberal Democratic Party. And 40-year-old Vladislav Davankov, deputy chairman of the lower house of parliament. But all of them are backed by the Kremlin, so essentially it is Putin versus dummies. Putin, however, is facing dissent. Leading the protest is Alexei Navalny's widow, Yulia Navalny. She has called for a massive election day protest against Putin. She vows to carry forward her late husband's mission. Alexei Navalny was one of Putin's fiercest critics. On February the 16th, he died mysteriously in an Arctic prison where he was serving a 3-decade jail term.
We can still use that so-called election against Putin and use it to achieve our goals. Alexei himself told us how to do it. We need to use the election day to show that we exist and there are many of us. We are real, we are alive, and we exist. We are against Putin. We need to come to the polling station on the same day and time, noon of March 17. It is up to you to choose what to do next. You can vote for any candidate but Putin. You can spoil the ballot. You can write on it in big letters, Navalny.
Russia boasts of a vast electorate. Over 112 million people will vote in presidential elections that are scheduled from May 15th to May 17th. Another 1.9 million people abroad also have the right to vote. A remote online voting system will also be available for the very first time. This year, voting will also take place in annexed territories of Ukraine that are now controlled by Moscow's forces and have been placed under Russian law. Around 70 to 80 million people usually exercise their right to vote in Russia. In 2018, the voter turnout was 67.5%. Vladimir Putin was first appointed acting president in 1999. In the year 2000, he won the presidential election with 53% of the vote. In 2004, the support for Putin went up to 71.3%. In 2008, Dmitry Medvedev ran for president and Putin served as prime minister. In 2012, he was back as president with 63.6% of the vote. And in 2018, he won the presidential election with 76.7% of the vote. This will be Vladimir Putin's 6th term. So how long can a Russian president rule? The 1993 Russian constitution specified that a president could only serve 2 terms of 4 years if they were back-to-back. In 2008, the presidential term was extended to 6 years after amendments. 2020 saw more amendments that formally reset Putin's own presidential term tally to 0 from 2024, potentially allowing him to remain in power until 2036. The West casts Putin as a war criminal and a dictator. The Kremlin says despite the West's opinions, Putin enjoys an overwhelming support and that Russia does not want to be lectured by the West about democracy. The Russian president maintains a robust approval rating of around 85%. This unwavering support suggests that Putin's return to the presidency is all but certain, and the election results which will inaugurate the winner in May will be a testimony to it.
And now from elections in Russia to elections in the United States. The race for the White House is picking up. And former president and Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has found perhaps his biggest MAGA supporter. However, he is not from a key battleground state, nor is he a member of the campaign team, at least not officially. In fact, he's all the way from the heart of Europe. It's none other than his longtime ally, Viktor Orban. The Hungarian prime minister says Donald Trump has a detailed plan to end the war in Ukraine. Our next report takes you inside their most recent meeting.
The 2024 US presidential race is gaining steam, and so is former President Donald Trump's campaign. Unprecedented support for Trump has not only been seen in Republican primaries, but also across the Atlantic in the heart of Europe, where his longtime ally Viktor Orban is backing his bid to return to the White House.
There are great opportunities ahead of us. The world political scene at the end of the year will have a completely different picture than it is at the beginning of the year. And if God helps us, Hungary's room for maneuvering will not decrease, but will expand to the extent we have seen in the past. We can't get involved in another country's elections, but we would really like President Donald Trump to return to the presidency and make peace here in the eastern half of Europe.
There.
The far-right Hungarian Prime Minister met Trump at his residence in Palm Beach, Florida. The focus of their discussion, apart from Trump's rerun, was the war in Ukraine. According to Orban, Trump, who he calls a man of peace, has a detailed plan to end the Ukraine war, which began 2 years ago. Orban says Trump won't give a penny to Ukraine if he's re-elected president, which would end the war as Kyiv cannot stand on its own feet. The Hungarian Prime Minister said that if Americans don't give money, the Europeans alone can't finance the war. He also said during Trump's presidency there was peace in the Middle East and peace in Ukraine, and that there would be no war if he was still the President of the United States. Both Trump and Orban have long shown deference and enthusiasm for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Orban has been solidifying Hungary's ties with Russia despite international pressure. He was the first leader to meet Putin in person after the Ukraine war began. With a warm handshake, he expressed Budapest's eagerness to expand cooperation with Moscow. Orban has also refused to supply Ukraine with weapons. Recently, Trump also suggested that if re-elected, he would encourage Russia to attack all US allies he deemed not to contribute enough to the NATO alliance.
I came in, I made a speech, and I said, you got to pay up. They asked me that question. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills. And the money came flowing in. And
US President Joe Biden condemned these remarks as dumb, shameful, and un-American. He has accused Trump of bowing down to Russia.
Former president has sent a dangerous and shockingly, frankly, un-American signal to the world. Just a few days ago, Trump gave an invitation to Putin to invade some of our allies, NATO allies. He said if an ally didn't spend enough money on defense, he would encourage Russia to, quote, do whatever the hell they want, end of quote. Can you imagine a former president of the United States saying that? The whole world heard it. The worst thing is he means it. No other president in our history has ever bowed down to a Russian dictator. Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I never will. For God's sake, it's dumb, it's shameful, it's dangerous, it's un-American.
Joe Biden also took a jibe at Orban and Trump's meeting, saying that the Hungarian Prime Minister is looking for a dictatorship.
I can tell you a lot about a person who he keeps company with. And yesterday he was hosting at his club Viktor Orban, who says he doesn't think democracy works. Call him a fantastic leader. Seriously. He's been sucking up to win him. Anyway. To want to build dictators and authoritarian thugs all around the world. He said the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un wrote him a beautiful letter. He bragged about calling Xi Jinping a king. He called Putin and he said, do whatever the hell you want to our allies. I'm not making these quotes up. When he says he wants to be a dictator, I believe him. But I don't want to get carried away here.
While Trump is certain to be the Republican presidential nominee, European leaders are nervous about another term for him as the US president, because this would mean waning US support for both Ukraine and NATO.
That's all we have time for today. We hope to see you right back here tomorrow at the same time. Thanks so much for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage.